Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. Okay. So we're continuing with the fragrances, and the next online is Kane and Kinamon. So yeah, I'll read it through here a little bit. It says regarding what we spoke about yesterday, more of a hoil ve'atal yadan. Since we talked yesterday about the musk, Nema be milta, let's say something about it. It says Yesh omrim shehu ziyat chaya. Some say it's like the perspiration of the animal. Ve'anachon be'enai shechaya yadu'ahi. So he says to me, it seems like it's some kind of a known animal. V'yesh la kamin chatotrot b'tzavara. And it has these on its neck, some kind of lesions, whatever. Umitkabetz sham techila kamin dam. So it gathers there like blood, and then it dries up, and that's where it comes from, this thing, the substance. So it says the Rama forbade to eat this thing. Mishum chashash dam. Why? Because there's concern that there's blood in there. But it says Rabbeinu Yonah. On the other hand, Rabbeinu Yonah wrote, "Shev shali ten tam le'atiro." There's a reason to allow this. To pure shabialmahu, because it's just perspiration, whatever. It's not perspiration. You would call that, yeah, like you know, what's the word? I forget the word. But anyway, the point is that תחילתו היה דם דבתר השתא נזינן. Even though in the beginning it was blood, but now it's like more like, you know what I was looking for, secretion. It's a secretion. So so therefore it's not really considered blood anymore since it's been already altered somewhat. תראה שדבש נפל בו חתיכת איסור, אף פי שהאיסור נימוח בתוכו. So it says you should know why, because if you have honey and fell in there some kind of prohibited substance, thing is the substance is melted בתוכו, inside of it. כיוון שדרך הדבש להחזיר הדבש הנופל לתוכו, but since the way of the honey is that it returns the item that falls inside there, דבש דיינים עליה, so we consider it to be like the honey itself. כמו דבש Hachanami here also he says אף על פי שתחילתו היה, even though the beginning was dumb, it was like blood, but our hashtas, we go according to now what it currently is. The Adoni Avi Rosal, this is the Rosh, Katav al Dvarab, so he wrote regarding this, Tafilu Rayatod Tzricha Raya, so he says really it's not reliable, this whole thing, you know, what he's saying. So in other words, he wants to also forbid this, to eat this thing. Okay, whatever, but you know, we're not really talking about eating anyway, we're talking about fragrances, right? So it's really like a side thing there. Side issue. Okay, so let's see what else we got here in the tour. Right, so this is what I was looking for, really. So here it talks about the right kaneh and kinamon, right, which is the cinnamon, and kaneh is something like also similar to that. cane, right? Kaneh is cane. In other words, it's sugar cane, you know, something like that. So he says the blessing on those will be atzeh besamim. So the Rosh says, Baruch Shenatan Reach Tov Laperot. He says, no, it's like you bless on the fruits. Same blessing as the fruits. Kevan Sheikaro La'achila. Why? Because the main element there is to eat it, the main purpose. Havek Etrog. It's considered like Etrog, he says. Okay, that's interesting. So let's take a look at that in the Beit Yosef Shulchan Aruch, and we'll come back to these things. So it says, as we said, right, the Beit Yosef regarding the sugar cane and the cinnamon, Gam Zeh Mordechai Sham. It's also there in the Mordechai says, ונראה שהטעם שהוא מחלק בין ברכת ריח דאגוז לברכת ריח דקנה. Why does he differentiate? Question is right regarding nuts and cane. משום דמשמע ליה דאגוז הוא עיקר, because he thinks that the nut is the main element there. Ikar pri, it's the main fruit. B'kaneh kinamon. But those things, right, the cane and the cinnamon are not the main fruit of that particular tree. So says the Rosh, Baruch Shenatan Reach Tov Beferot. He says, no, you got to make this blessing, which is on the fruits. This language of the Pepesh, Kitzan Berachim, Hameriach Bekaneh Mevarech Asher Natan Reach Tov Bepri Adama. He blesses, right, the sugar cane, whatever. He blesses. If he smells the sugar cane, he blesses the Asher Natan Tov, right? Reach Tov Bepri Adama. So it's like, you know, his blessing on the fruit. According to this, Kevan Sheikaro Omed La'achila, because he says the main element there, main purpose is to eat that stuff. Like we say later on, Hai man de marach etroga. We said, right, that the one who smells the etrog, Omer Asher Natan Reach Tov LaPerot. That's the blessing you make. Velo mevarech borei perot besamim. And you don't bless this, right? Creates the fruits of the fragrance. Kivan sheikaro omed lachila, because the main purpose is there to eat it. והגור כתב בשם מרדכי, right? This rabbi says, שהרבנו משה מקוצי היה מברך בורא ביני וסמים, he will bless בורא ביני וסמים, ואני נראה שהרבנו משה מקוצי שהביא מרדכי לא קיה לברכת הקינמון. So it seems to me, he says that rabbi wasn't really referring to the cinnamon, והאגוז, and also the nut, אלא לאחד מספק עליהם, only when he has a doubt. I mean, when if there's that's considered to be something from a tree derived, or min adama, or something from the ground. Beduk. Okay, so katav gaon otam beradim shekorin rosish. Right now, he's talking about roses, right? What do you bless on roses? So let's go back to the tour. We got some more stuff there. I heard that in our times, there's two types of roses, you know. There's the ones that grow on a tree, and then the ones that grow on the ground. So if that's really true, that would change the blessing, you know, depending on how it grew. But anyway, over here, let's see what he says. So says the Tur, Kivan. So he says me umea vered. Okay, that's something else. Let's see what will be before that. Yeah. So he says katav gaon otam vradim shekorin rosish, right? So he says those roses, right? The gaon says mevarech alem boresh baruch shenatan riach tov b'perot. So this, according to this opinion, you have to bless like on the fruits, you know, riach tov b'perot. You know. So the question is, why does he consider the rose to be a fruit? And you know what the answer is, if I'm not mistaken? The answer is because, you know, the roses are somewhat edible. Like, even though today we don't eat them, but I think in the old days they used to eat them. Anyway, let's go to Bet Yosef. This is how he explains this. So it says Bet Yosef, King Katav Rashba. Rashba also says this, B'tshuva. B'shem Rabad, named Rabad, Katav V'chen Da'ati Noteh. So he says he agrees with that, you know? Lefi she'en shen nechalin b'merkachat, right? So there you go, right? So he says, you know what? People do eat them actually. So what does that mean? They put them like they make like a jam out of it or something. So he says it's like etrog. Similar concept, you know. Today nobody eats them. Never saw anybody eating roses today. Okay, fine. Gam בסוף פרק כיצד מברכים כתב רשב"א. Rashba also says in a different place, דברי הרב"ד, the words of Rabbi, וכתב גם על מי ורד מברך שנתן ריח טוב פירות. So the question is, what do you bless on, right, rose water, right? Is that what they call it today? I don't know. This is the liquid that comes from the roses. But it's actually, you know, it's like they soak it in water, you know, so it absorbs the smell of the roses.
Water.
I'm sorry?
Water.
Rose water. Yeah, okay, got it. I got lucky. Okay. This time I got lucky. So anyway, right, that's what it is, you know. So the question is, what do you bless on that? Right? So he also says, right, Shenatan reach tov v'perot. Also here, you bless like a fruit blessing. So, right, that probably, you know, that supports what we said yesterday regarding perfume, right? That it's also considered to have, you know, the source of the fragrance inside there, similar to the rose water. Okay, whatever. Anyway, hmm. והראש כתב שם דברי הגאון. So the Rosh brought the words of the Gaon, בדברי הרמב"ם, um, and he brought the Rambam, כתב דניאל לא כדברי הרמב"ם. So he says, I agree with the Rambam. So what does that mean? שמבורך על הוורד, בורא עצי ושמים. The Rambam says you do עצי ושמים. This is what, this is the direction that we go in today. Because we don't consider the rose to be a fruit. Wadai la prehens. So he says, there you go. He says it's not a fruit. There you go. Okay. I guess it depends on where you live, right? There were some places where they eat that stuff. Go figure. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, let's move on. כתוב במרדכי, פרק כיצד מברכים. It says in מרדכי, סיגלי בורא, סיגלי, בורא יסבב סמים. So he says this herb is going to be יסבב סמים, והוא הדין שושנים. Same thing with שושנים, right? Mhm. Right. So sigali, I think it's also a type of a flower, if I'm not mistaken. And shoshanim is also a flower, right? Some say shoshanim is roses also. So according to this, he says bore isbe besamim, right? It's like isbe. So what does that mean? It's more like something which grows on the ground. Right. So that's the thing, as I told you, right? It could be that there's different types of roses. The ones that grow on the ground and the ones that grow on the tree. Okay, whatever. Anyway, that's interesting stuff. וכן כתוב בהגות מימון, right? That's what it says also גמרא, ודבר פשוט הוא, so it says it's obvious, פשוט, דלא על שושנים הגדלים באילן אמרו. Look what it says, right? We're not talking about those tree roses, right? So there you go, right? So actually it's brought down. There's different types of roses. Now we're getting somewhere here. כן, אלא על שושנים הגדלים קרקע. There you go, right? So even he says, right, that there's two types of roses. The ones that grow on the tree and the ones that grow on the ground. Wow. Okay. That's great. So,
I mean, there are ground cover roses. They're still kind of shrubby, but is this why the Shushanim are also possibly interpreted to be lilies?
I'll tell you something. This lily business, I don't really have a good source for that. I don't know, any of the like big rabbis that said that. Uh, so, all the rabbis seem to say that Shoshana is a rose. How can I tell you? I don't know what to say. Anyway, there are, by the way, when it comes to identification of these species, there are several mistakes that are found, especially in the modern books. Because they have a problem with the language. They don't understand the language so good. They don't have a good source for language. Okay, whatever. So there you go, right? So we have two types. That's what it is. So it says כמו שגדלים בסביבות ניקופולי וגבוליה. Oh, so it says there's a place called Nikopoli, right? They grow over there. Wow. I don't know where's Nico Foley, right? Probably somewhere in Europe, somewhere, right? I don't know. God knows. Maybe Spain, maybe Italy. I don't know. God knows what it is. Whatever. Anyway, uh, וגבוליה בקרקע, so it says, ורדים כמו אותם שגדלים באילן. Oh, right. So basically, he's telling you, right? They look the same as the ones that grow on the tree. They're the same thing. Wow. כמו אותם שגדלים באילן. Okay, fantastic. So let's see what else we got here. A little bit more. It says here, מה שכתב רבנו, ומי הוולד, כיוון שיוצאים מהודר, מברך עליהם בורא עצי ושמים. So he says, and that which Shatur said, right? What about the rose water? So since they come from the roses, right? You do עצי ושמים. So regarding this, says Bet Yosef, גם זה מדברי הראש, it also comes from the ראש, שם, וכן כתב רמב"ם, Rambam also says this. Okay, פרק ט', והרב"ד חלק, the Rabbi argues with that. ואמר שאינו מברך על מי ורד, אלא מיני ושמים. So he says you do מיני ושמים for rose water. כתב רבנו יונה, says רבנו יונה, שנראה לו שטעמו של הרב"ד, so he says, I think that the reason of the רב"ד, מפני שאין מי ורד באים מן העץ עצמו. Oh, so he says the reason is because it doesn't come from the tree itself, the water. אלא מהפרי הנברא בתוכו. It's only if it comes from fruit that grows in it. ואפשר לומר שאף על פי שאינו בעל מהעץ, so it's possible to say, he says, that even though that it doesn't come from the tree של הוורד עצמו, it doesn't come from the rose tree itself, כיוון שבא מדבר הנברא בתוכו, but since it comes from something which is grows inside there, מברכין עליה בורא עצי ושמים. So we do עצי ושמים. מי הוא כתב אחר כך, כיוון דספיקה להווה, so then he writes afterwards that since it's a doubt, מברך בורא מיני ושמים. It says do מיני ושמים. Just be on the safe side, right? Just because it covers all of them. ולעניין ההלכה, so it says fine. What's ההלכה? Bottom line, right? כיוון שהרמב"ם והראש מסכימים לדעת אחד, since the Rambam and the Rosh agreed to one opinion, הכי נקטינה, that's how we paskin. Okay, there you go. ויש אומרים שמברכים על הלבונה בורא מיני ושמים. Some say what about levona, right? So what is levona? Levona is frankincense. So they say, right, bore minev samim. Some say like that. So says Bet Yosef regarding this, nireh deladat ze hu adin de ala mutztaki, right? Mevarech bore minev samim. The same thing also would be with the mutztaki. וכן כתב רבינו יונה, so רבינו יונה says, והרב"ד אומר שעל מי ורד והמוצטקי, so he says on the rose water and the מוצטקי והלבונה and the frankincense אין מברך אלא בורא מיני ושמים. All these things are מיני ושמים. So מוצטקי is I forget what that is. One time I knew. I don't remember right now. Rings the bell. Okay, whatever. Anyway, let's try the Shulchan Aruch, I guess. So this one, just make sure I got the right thing here. And this is Gimel. Okay, fine. Just wanted to make sure. So it says Shulchan Aruch, V'ala vered, v'ala kinamon. What do you bless on, right? The roses and cinnamon, shehu or hindi, right, which is this thing. V'al meha vered, and also, right, the rose water. V'ala lebona, and frankincense, right, and mustaki, things like this. Says all of them are bore atzeves samim. That's how he paskins. Right. So in other words, he doesn't go like the opinion we just saw, which is that they're mineves samim. So let me just take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here. So he says the mutstaki is like a type of wood, fragrant wood. I'm sorry, but I didn't say it right. It's not the wood. There's like a resin, right? Maybe it's balsam, possibly, possibly balsam, because balsam is a resin that comes from a tree. Okay. So that means that whatever we said yesterday, right? We had this word. What was that? Tell you a second. Canela, right? So apparently canela is not cinnamon because you just mentioned it now. So canela must be something else. I'm not really sure what that is. Let me see if I can Google it. One second. Let me try my luck. Okay, I'll try my luck. Got nothing to lose. So, you know how he translates it in Google. You ready for this? Take a guess. Right? Canela. Doesn't really help me much.
Could this be a version of like vanilla?
Oh, I don't know. Let me. You know what? I have to do the Google in English to see maybe it'll help us a little bit. I don't know. All kinds of strange stuff.
Get my Jastro out.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, we'll have to leave that one. Leave that one over. Okay, I don't know. According to the context, right, of what we said yesterday, apparently it's some kind of a nut or the similar. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna go too crazy with this stuff. Let me just see this mastiki. I don't know. Okay, no big deal. We get the idea. So the general rule that comes out of this, right, uh, is that if it's something like which is like a fruit type of thing, which grows on a tree, um, some kind of a fragrant thing which like resembles a nut or something like that. So things like this, we're gonna bless Hanoten Reach Tov Lapirot, which is talking about fruit. Because those are considered to be like fruit-like things. But things which are more like the bark of the tree, or the tree itself, or the resin. So those are not really fruits at all. So therefore, we bore atzeves samim on those things. So that's like the fine line there, that we're talking about from yesterday to today. Yesterday, we're talking more about the fruitish kind of things, nuts, which like resemble fruits. But today we're talking more about the bark and tree, wood. Okay, it's all good. So therefore, right, if it's something which, the general rule is when it's a fruit and it's something which is edible fruit, anoten rechtov lepirot. That's what we bless on it, like etrog, as we said, right? When it's just something from the tree, the bark of the tree, the resin from the tree, all kinds of things like this, which are not really the fruit of the tree. So there it becomes bore atzeves samim. Okay, fantastic. So let's see what else we got here. We have one more. Oh, even two, even three. Okay, we got a lot more. Okay. So let's go step by step. We'll start with Dalit, right? Let's go to Dalit. So what do we say about rose water? In Shulchan Aruch, we said, also on the frankincense, and also the roses. But what's interesting is, that in the Beit Yosef, he brought, right, there's two types of roses, as we said, right? Those that grow on the tree and those that grow on the ground. But here, he only brings right, seems to bring only one variety, the tree variety. So why is that? Let's see if Mishabura picks up on that. There you go, right? So he brings it back to Yosef, right? Going back to the source, right? He says he brings it back to Yosef, and then Mishabura, like we saw, right? That if they grow on the ground, you're supposed to bless, right? Isbevesamim, not Atzevesamim. Okay, interesting. The problem is, we don't know. Like you go to the forest, how do you know if it grew on the ground or if it grew in the tree? How do you do that? My hunch is, that most of them grow on the tree. These things, these roses. Maybe I'm wrong. The brown thing, is more like a rarity. It's like something unusual, but it does exist in certain places. Okay. Anyway, so right. So now it goes to a different topic, which is Mishcha de Afar Semon, right? What about this? Is like balsam oil. Mevarech alav bore shemen arev. Oh, so there's a special blessing for oils, right? Which is he creates the pleasant oils. That's how you translate it, I guess. Perek Kitzad Mevarachin. So says Bet Yosef, where is this? In the Gemara there, Mem Gimel Amud Aleph in Brachot. Katav Rabbeinu Yonah, says Rabbeinu Yonah, לפי שנמצא בארץ ישראל והוא חשוב קבור בו ברכה בפני עצמו. It says, because it's found in Eretz Israel and it's considered like something prominent, therefore they gave it like its own blessing. Wow, yeah. It's a special kind of oil. So therefore it gets its own blessing. And it's in Israel, which makes it even more special. So it says regarding this, but Yosef, פרק כיצד מברכים, כתב רבינו יונה, says Rabbeinu Yonah, right, we said this, okay, let's, what else we got here? Okay, Shulchan Aruch Daled. So says Shulchan Aruch, al shemen aparsemon, right, mevarech bore shemen arev. So this oil, right, aparsemon, which has its own blessing. Bore shemen arev, because we said, because of its prominence, right? So let me see how he translates this. Right, so he says parsimon, right? Yeah, which sounds right. Parsimons. So apparently, right, this has some kind of a oil, this tree. I don't know. I don't really know what it's all about.
Saying persimmons?
Right. Is there any oil that comes out of that thing? I don't know. Not really familiar with it at all. Let me see Mishnah Berurah, what he says. Oh, so Mishnah Berurah says right away, right, that it's this is the tzori, right? Lashon HaMikra, which is in the Bible, biblical word. Right. So, so this is not parsimon. The truth is, right, that this is like more like a modern translation. But I think it's talking about balsam oil. Because it says, right, in the Talmud, Hatzori eno ela shiraf hanotef me'at haketaf. It's like it's a resin, that comes out of the tree. So let me see if I have any luck with this one. Not really. Okay. So I think that's what it is. So this one it was considered like something very special. It has like a very incredible smell. So they made like a special blessing for it. As I told you guys, right, there's a lot of interesting things going on in Eretz Israel. All kinds of beautiful fragrances and God knows what. You have to be there to experience all this stuff. Okay, so let's move on. See what else we got. Oh, so now we're talking about olive oil. Interesting. Let's see what we got. So I guess we'll try this one and we'll stop. So it says it through like this. כשרתה משחה ומשחה, כבישה ומשחה תחינה, על כולם מברך בורא בעצב וסמים. So he says all kinds of things like this, which are apparently like, olive, like oil stuff, products. All of them are borei atzev samim. So we'll see what this really is. Shama Amar Gada Barahava. So this rabbi says over in the Gemara, Hai kasharta mivarchin alea borei atzev samim. But mashcha kvisha lo. But he says one of them yes, the other one no. Rav Kehana Amar afilu mashcha kvisha. He says even mashcha kvisha. But mashcha techina, right? So these are all types of oils, olive oils, but they're made differently. Lo nehad, no, not so. Nehadeh amre afilu. These rabbis say nehadeh from nehadeh. Afilu mashcha techina upasku arif ve'arosh ki nehadeh. So they pass like the rif and the rosh like nehadeh. So what does that mean? That even so, there's different types of ways of getting the oil, right? One is to press the olives, and one is to grind the olives. So it depends on how you do it. And then he says, מה שכתב רבנו בפירש בערוך כשארת עיקרו שמן זית. So he says right in Aruch that this is like olive oil, right? גם מה שכתב בשם הרעב"ד, that was שדרו name רעב"ד, דווקא כשהעצים מתוכו, that's when the wood comes from within it, עד דמיני בסמים כולל הכל. And then כולל, כן כתב רבנו יונה. והראש. רבנו לכולי עלמא בעינן שעיקרן קיים קצת ילקח אם סיננו אין בו כלום. So he says, even according to that which the Torah said, right, that has to be some source there. Otherwise, right, if he filtered it and there's nothing else left there, there's nothing left there, it's just totally liquid. So then, and it doesn't have nothing from the fragrance. Some say you don't bless on that at all. Only this blessing, right? Which is the same as the balsam. Some say we don't bless at all on this. So he says the last opinion is the Rambam. Katab Pektet, he wrote in chapter 9, שהמריח בכלים שהם מוגמרים, if you right, bless on clothing, right, which is scented, you don't bless on that, because there's no source there. There's just a smell without a source. But he says the rock doesn't seem to agree with this. Because they wrote in Tosfot, Bishmo, and the name his name, the Mashka Kevisha Hainu Shekovshim Shumshamin Bered. So he says it's talking about here that they press the sesame and the flower, the rose, Samim, and fragrant woods, and different types of things, and it absorbs the sesame. The sesame absorbs the smell of the fragrances. And then we press it and grind it. It has the smell of, right, the fragrances, herbs. And then he puts, right, this olive oil. Mao the tema, you may thought to say the karov the chinatan natan bayan. You may have thought that you put something which is close to being ground up, local to kamashman, they didn't absorb. Come to teach you umashman shafa pisha en kan ikar habosen. So it says it implies that even though you don't have the main scent over here, klal at all, ela hareach shekaltu shumshamin, rather it's just a smell that the right that the sesame has absorbed. Still blesses Bari. So this seems to argue with what we said before, right? That when there's no essence there, there's no the source is not there. We don't bless. That's what it seems on Rashba also. He says. Okay, so I guess we'll continue next time, but I just want to see in the Shulchan Aruch what he says here. So it says here like this, right? Shemen zayit shekatsho o techano, right? Olive oil, whether it was pressed, right, or ground up, the olives, right? Ad shechazar rechol nodef, until the point where it's it has a nice smell, right? Mevarech alav borei atzim esamim. So the blessing is borei atzamim. In other words, so basically the idea is like this, right? That when you have olive oil, which is scented, has a scent, the blessing is going to be borei atzim esamim. Because after all, right, it comes from the olive tree. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll review this a little bit tomorrow because we didn't finish about Yosef. So Bezrat Hashem, we'll get back to it tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch, and we'll see you tomorrow. All the best.
Thank you so much.